Everybody, welcome to Polytech. This is Dale Gibler, your host. Today, I want to talk about what it is really costing taxpayers when the U.S. blows up so-called drug boats in Venezuela, and what's the real motivation behind President Trump's campaign to do this, right? So I'll walk you through the facts, the cost, both dollars and political, and the different explanations experts have been offering you as you've seen on media and social media and etc. So let's jump a little bit further into this. And first, what happened, right? Since early September, the U.S. has publicly acknowledged a series of strikes on small vessels in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. The administration says they're carrying drugs. So agencies report multiple strikes, a campaign that has expanded in number geographically over recent weeks. And I think the latest number is 57 people have been executed or killed on these boats up to date. So and this is nowhere ending at this point in time. These operations have triggered bipartisan questions and legal authorities without no transparencies. AP News has reported on this multiple times. So with that all said, right, the easy headline is we blow up some boats. The harder question is, how much did this cost taxpayers? There's no single public line of items called drug boat strikes that we can't point to, but we can add up the obvious pieces together just by doing a Google search or by using ChatGPT. So the weapons fired, the aircraft and the flight times used, the fuel, all of these other things, the logistics of it, and the surveillance and the command overhead that supports these strikes are expensive. Let's start with the weapons just so you get an idea. The kind of air-to-surface missiles commonly used in these scenarios, for example, are AGM-65 Mavericks. Usually analysts who have talked about this stuff discuss them in detail, so I'm really not going to do that, but these are like the plausible type of weapons that are being used. I have a broad unit cost range depending on the variants that have been reported out there, and yes, I did use ChatGPT for a little extra help on that. Officials and open sources put Maverick unit costs roughly from about, I think it was like 10,000 up to a few $100,000 a piece, counting on what they're going to be using. So weapon costs per strike can easily be in the low six figures or much higher in the millions as a sense of how expensive this is. So aircraft flight hours different, right? So the Department of Defense publishes reimbursable hourly rates for many aircrafts that they use during these types of operations, depending on whether jets, maritime, patrol planes, drones are used. I mean, flight hours and rates have to be billed for and are widely known as well. So an example, an official 2025 DoD schedule shows multiple $1,000 hourly rates for just for surveillance planes and reconnaissance drones used during this blow-up boat expedition. So these are commodity types of estimates, but they're fairly accurate as we go through them. So things like add fuel, ordnance prep, maintenance, crew time, and a single sortie tracking things like engagement targets can range from thousands to potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in a flight hour cost alone. It's amazing how much that goes up. So a conservative on the books estimate for one strike, one missile, you'll say like a small salvo, a couple of flights hours, manned aircraft or patrol assets, and the supporting drone ships and surveillance that go along with that. Lands maybe plausible hits with the ordnance that they're using, with all that kind of put together, is a range between about $200,000 to about $2 million per actual strike. So the wide range, because why? I mean, it's a little hard to tell exactly what they're using. They're not being totally transparent in what they're doing, what types of aircrafts, and all of these different things. So it's a little tough trying to figure out exactly what the cost would be. But So listen, dollars aren't the only cost with this, right? We just kind of talked about the cost of the bombs, cost of the logistics, and all these different things. There's legal political capital being spent here, and there's a high risk involved with what's going on. So lawmakers from both parties have demanded information, and some cases warn that the president's use of military force without explicit new congressional oversight or authorization raises constitutional and international law questions, and experts in human rights and groups agree with this 100%. They've been limited to public evidence, which is hard to make the decision on because this administration has not been very clear and forthright with what really is going on with these types of operation. Evidence presented show a cloudy picture of whether or not this is truly a drug intervention, or is it more to control the government in Venezuela. So that's an arguable point. So what's the real motivation here? There are several plausible overlapping explanations experts are discussing right now. Hey, it's a genuine drug interaction, right? They're trying to stop Venezuela from bringing over drugs to the United States. And specifically, they talk about fentanyl. But if we look back at information and past information brought up, Venezuela has a very low number of transfers of fentanyl to the United States or reported. And most of those have actually been either caught or interrupted. The second most plausible to me is the pressure on Maduro and the regime leverage that Trump is trying to get. So that their strikes also serve to increase pressure on Venezuelan government and push the political change or concession more towards what Trump sees as beneficial to himself. Some commentators argue that the strikes fit into a broader, more devious type of approach to what Venezuela is going through. Using force overseas can be a powerful political message to domestic audiences, demonstrating toughness and toughness on crime. So not only is he trying to put fear and interruption into a foreign government, but he's also trying to win the admiration of the American people on falsehoods as we see it. So those are some of the plausible ones, right, that we're looking at. The other one is expanding executive authority. So legal memos, policies, actions, all of these different things have created legal framework that makes such strikes easier to justify internally, right? So critics say that this also normalizes broader, unilateral military actions in the hemispheres. Think tanks and legal analysts warn that this structural change with the way we're approaching things are setting a norm precedent for them, even though they may not be legal, and then internationally and within the United States. In short, the strikes likely serve multiple goals, right? Final takeaway on this for listeners, the focal cost per strike, missile plus aircraft, etc., is immeasurable and falls in thousands of dollars that will cost taxpayers per engagement, depending on the assets used. And they've been very tight on releasing that information. The hidden cost along with this is legal fights, diplomatic fallouts, increased regional instability, potential escalations, and the executive military actions that this president is taking that may or may not be legal internationally. Thank you for joining me, and make sure that you follow us on Spotify, also follow us on YouTube and Substack as well. Thank you.